everyone. I'm Arti Raghupati, the Director of the Center for Digital Transformation. Today we have a short summit on to discuss the opportunities and challenges that technology, especially digital technologies, offer in the Bronx. We have Dr. Brian Burns, the Vice President for Lincoln Center at Fordham University, to provide the opening remarks.
Thank you, RP. And for those of you who are not Fordham people, welcome to Fordham. For those of you who are, welcome back. I am the designated hitter for Father Shane, our president. He got last out into a meeting of the Jesuit presidents in Chicago today, so he asked me to fill in. And you may be wondering why the Vice President from the Center is asked to do this. Well, I was up here for about 30 years before they seconded me downtown. For other things, I do know some of the people in the audience, so that's why I'm here. You know, when Fordham was founded over 170 years ago, there was no Bronx. All right, and as the Bronx there was no borough of the Bronx. It was way outside the city. It was all farmland. And as the Bronx sort of grew up around us, the university grew up with it. So we've seen an enormous number of changes. Some not so good, but of late, absolutely a record of incredible accomplishment. So we're also now at a point, a seminal point, where another change is going to start sweeping globally, which is the use of digital technology and the possibilities that brings to the borough for development within the borough and then relating further outside to other constituencies. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome you to this group to this event. I wish I could stay the whole day. Unfortunately, we're in midterms. I have a number of concerned students. I still teach in the Belly School, and my dean is sitting over here saying, to work. But I hope the program looks really exciting, and I'm very happy to bring everyone here on behalf of the president, who could be here, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks very much.
Dean David Garchi of the Graduate School of Business
I'll say something. Yes. Welcome. Let me add my welcome to all of you to this event. This is a wonderful initiative that RP and his colleagues have really put their shoulders to. The Center for Digital Transformation is obviously something that is very timely. Both business schools, the Graduate School of Business and the Valley School, are linked in supporting this and making sure that the events and the progress that we make is apparent on both campuses and in the communities that we touch. So I think the topic of technology startups and focusing especially on the environment of the Bronx is very timely and appropriate for Fordham to be doing. Fordham is an icon here in this local economy and a leader. And this is illustrated just this week with the opening of the foundry across the street that the Valley School has made a significant investment in, at least psychological. So welcome to all of you for joining this important program today, and I wish you great success. And our team, congratulations on the progress that you've been making with this initiative.
Okay, before I turn it over to Bob Gatch, who will be the Master of Ceremonies and also the moderator of the panel, I just wanted to mention a few things about the center. Right. At the back, on the back of the brochure, you do have a brief write-up about the center and its mission and the kinds of activities that the center is engaged in. For today's summit, I just want to focus on the potential of technology, especially digital technology, in promoting economic growth, creating jobs, as well as also looking at quality of life issues in terms of social justice. So to that end, to accomplish that, we want the center to be actively engaged in the Bronx community, the students, through projects, providing training faculty as well, and the alumni. So what I'm looking for from the center's perspective is to see what research teams might emerge. For example, the summit might indicate that we need more information on strategies or applications. I'm hoping that I can bring that with me to the center and engage students and faculty in conducting that research and then presenting the results. And that's why we call this a summit, so that it is an exchange of ideas and facilitates a discussion through the speakers' talks as well as through the panel discussion. So very briefly, I look at research as one of the primary functions of the center, and this gives us a great opportunity to do some applied research in the Bronx. So, for example, making surveys to find out what are the technology infrastructure needs in the Bronx. Another would be education itself, and I have a couple of examples of small steps we have taken, providing training perhaps to high school students in the use of software, as well as in service. And again, I have another example there with the Calm and Down program of New York City. So also talking to corporations here like Verizon and some of the other big players, there's opportunity for e-learning and distance learning. Fordham already has the STEP program, which Mike Molina will run, and Steve D'Agostino's here. He's going to be on the panel. He also knows about that. And I was thinking again how we can use mobile technologies, broadband, to enhance the quality of learning. Another area of interest to us is health, and to examine the potential of mobile health and e-health within the Bronx. And lastly, to look at how we could use the technology to support small businesses. Because studies have shown that over 85% of small businesses in New York City do not use information technology. So I call these tokens, not tokens. There's a long way to go with that. So over the past year, myself and a couple of other faculty, including Professor Naharaja, who teaches statistics, have been assisting a Bronx science student to complete in the Intel Science Competition project. Interestingly, he's not doing some gene discovery or finding a cure for cancer or something. He wanted to focus on data, so his project is really a big data analytics project, and he wanted to look at the data with on all the 50 states to see which states are more innovation-oriented, which encourage entrepreneurship, etc. And considering big data is a big topic now, even the Groundhogs in Pennsylvania, the Mandy project, I think we won't forecast the long winters anymore for free. We want to use Hadoop and big data. So that is an exciting space, and we are hoping the student is on the advisory, the student council, and was saying that he wants to expand this program to include more students, so that students are not only looking for biotech labs or labs and universities, but really can do these kinds of projects, practical projects. Another one we did with Mike Molina over summer was to introduce a summer digital technology module into the Fordham STEP program. So that was a 4-week program. I think it went well. Professor Howard Klein is here. Is the one who taught in that program, and we hope to expand that one as well to make it throughout the year, and also start with middle school, not just high school. The last one, more recent, is many of you know there is an old Town and Gown program to bring New York City agencies and universities together to do projects, primarily engaging students. And this year I have 10 students now working on 3 projects. The city agency. Call it a free internship or whatever, but they get good experience working with the city agencies on real research projects. Okay. Lastly, in terms of future engagements, the center, we want to work with industry, try to bring grants to do these kind of e-learning, mobile health types of projects. And hopefully from the summit, we can identify some of those key research projects. Finally, what triggered all these, this summit was a spate of articles appearing in the news. For example, July 10th, why can the Bronx be more like Brooklyn? And it's a pretty good article in terms of summarizing some of the issues. But more importantly, there was a recent study by the Center for Urban Future. And the summary is that there were over 450 startups in the past 5 years, and the numbers keep going up. High-tech startups, these are all high-tech startups. So again, much to be done. And then lastly, there was another follow-up study which looked at not just entrepreneurship and startups, but even the use of technology. And this study actually says that over 85% of businesses in New York City, not just the Bronx, are not using websites, other advanced tools, even spreadsheets, accounting systems, etc. And here's a quote from Terry McLean from Wetco in the Bronx, confirming that for a section of the Bronx. Okay, so I just want to turn it over to Bob Gatch now, who's a scholar in residence at our center, and also a good friend of the center. And he's the managing director for the capital markets at Accenture. So he will coordinate the rest of this morning's program. Thank you.
Thank you, RP, and good morning to everyone. I'm just going to make a few opening comments before I start to invite our speakers up this morning. Just to echo a couple of comments that RP made, we really are hoping that not only will the center benefit from today's discussions, but that many of you will as well. We've been very thoughtful in selecting the different speakers and panelists. I think we have a great mix of people from the business community, from the civic community, from academia. And it's our goal to really foster a discussion. As RP said, not so much to get to conclusions, although perhaps we'll find a few, but more importantly to look at the different aspects of the subject and to see how we can learn from each other and also to foster some follow-up items as well. The way that we'll conduct this session is we're going to have a few speakers first that will go and talk about, from their perspectives, some of the challenges and opportunities about technology startups in the Bronx and the broader topics about creating the right ecosystem for success. Then we'll have a very short break, and I'll assemble a panel that also has members from business, academia, and civic organizations. And we'll try to get a little bit of a cross-fertilization. I would invite the audience at that time, if they have questions, please feel free to raise those, and we'll send some mics around and we'll get your participation. But to start us off, I'd like to invite Dean Rappuccioli to address us. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? No, I have no slides. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, RP. I'm really happy to be here today because this type of event really showcases one of the primary goals that Dean Gauchi and myself have in mind for our research centers. Most research centers just focus on academic research, and at Fordham, we have a fabulous faculty of scholars who bring together academic research and industry partners. But what makes me really proud about today is we've taken an extra step, and we thought about how can our research impact the local community, the community in which we live. And today, it's about the community of the Bronx. So I commend Professor Bradley, Professor Katsumakis, Bob Gatch, and the Center for partnering with industry and government to really tackle a problem, an issue, and think about new ways to create solutions. I also applaud the students because there are how many students are here? The students, a lot of students here. I applaud the students for being in the room and for taking the plunge to learn about how they can add value to their community. And as we listened to the speakers before, it's true that the other boroughs are ahead of the Bronx in terms of technology. Startups are proliferating in Manhattan's Chinatown, in the cast iron buildings of Soho, and along the High Line in Chelsea. Brooklyn neighborhoods from Greenpoint, I know you all saw that article, about why can't the Bronx be more like Brooklyn. This is very personal for me, though. I have to say because I live in the Bronx. So, in any case, other boroughs really are moving at a faster pace. Even what I would consider Sleepy Roosevelt Island is now filled with energy about the technology branch of Cornell. But although it seems like there is some technological innovation in the Bronx. And I just thought I'd bring a couple of ideas to the forefront. It might not be as easy to see or as glossy or long established, but if you look at Hunts Point, there is the Sunshine Business Incubator, and inside of it, there really is a high-tech core. It's a very historic building, much like our building. The outside is historic, but the inside is filled with high-tech tools. You can look in Norwood and Morris Park, where the doctors of Montefiore Medical Center and Albert Einstein College of Medicine are really raising the standard of medical care with high-tech instruments. And as Dean Gauci mentioned, as of this week, as of Monday, I'm proud to say that if you just look across Fordham Road, we have our own incubator called the Fordham Foundry. And that is an entrepreneurship center for the entire Fordham community, but it's also for the Bronx community. So there will be ways for residents of the Bronx to become members of our incubator. So although there's not much going on, there's lots of potential. So it makes me wonder about the role of Fordham, and in particular, the role of the Center for Digital Transformation. What role can we play in bringing technology further and shine a light on it? I guess the questions are, where can the Bronx go from here, and how can Fordham help? And this is really your charge today. But I want to pick up on a few points that our team made and just throw some ideas out there. Because I do see several roles for our university community. Again, the focus today is going to be on listening to your ideas. The first one is one that I think RP alluded to, and that's the provider of intellectual capital. Fordham is really not in a position to provide financial capital. We have a little bit of seed money now through the Foundry, but our significant contribution is not going to be on the financial side. We can use our research methods to do a needs assessment for the Bronx. What are the problems that the people of the Bronx are facing? And which of those problems, as RP mentioned, can be solved with technology? We can work with local healthcare providers to develop digital solutions to help Bronx residents better understand and maintain their health. And we can use our marketing skills to get that message out. We can create a curriculum for the South Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation and other groups that offer business development workshops in the Bronx. And we will offer similar courses in the Fordham Foundry. We can continue the relationship that our student volunteers have with the Fordham Road Business Improvement District. And they look for ways to integrate what we're doing to help the community. In short, there's a lot of ways that we can integrate our intellectual capital to help the Bronx, to help the borough of the Bronx. The second contribution that I see Fordham making is in the area of social justice and a focus on economic progress. The Bronx has a very unique population compared with the rest of the city, one that needs additional support. According to something that I reviewed most recently, 28% of the people who live in the Bronx live in poverty. That's double the 14% citywide percentage. The median household income in the Bronx over the last 5 years has lagged behind the New York City average of $34,000. Retail sales per capita in the Bronx is only $4,000, which is 1/3 the average in other boroughs. So there's no doubt that there's a need. The people of the Bronx need our help, and they stand to gain an enormous amount from it. So we have a legitimate opportunity before us to to bring about real change. Change that will affect the people that live in our community. And I guess the last idea that I'll throw out there to you is that what Fordham can bring to the table is an entrepreneurial mindset. And you might have heard me say this before. When I think about entrepreneurship, I think about it much more broadly than starting your own business. For me, it's a way of thinking. It's a mode of being. And our broad definition of entrepreneurship encompasses all sorts of innovative thinking, solving tough problems with ingenuity, coming up with solutions that are outside the box, seeing possibility where people only see challenge. So it's this mindset that I hope that we launch today's events, thinking about what are the issues and how can we add value? How can we use everyone in our community to solve our problems? So thank you again for being here, and I look forward to listening to all of your insights.
Thank you, Dean. A great, I think, set of ideas to start us off this morning, and I'm sure we'll come back to many of those. Now I'd like to invite Ray Sanchez to give us a view really from the borough's view. And Ray is the policy director for the Bronx Borough President's Office.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. In addition to being Director of Policy for the Borough President, I'm also an adjunct professor at BMCC. And I teach an evening class. So imagine about 30, 18-year-old at 7:30 at night. In order to get them ready to learn and excited, you got to greet them with a great deal of enthusiasm. So I greet you with the same enthusiasm I greet my students. Good morning!
Good morning!
Now we're talking. Do I even need this? I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really grateful for the opening that Dean Rappacelli, that's just Dean Rappacelli just laid in front of me, because she talked about a few things. I'm already talking really fast. I'm so excited to be here. Got to slow down. Some of the points she made in terms of where the Bronx is, the challenges in the Bronx, talking about the concentration of poverty and some of the issues that are unique to this county. I'm going to come at this from a couple perspectives and give you a little bit of background as well. The Bronx is a county of 1.5 million people. Put that in perspective. If the Bronx were its own city, it would be comparable to the size of Philadelphia. All right? Put that in perspective. It's densely populated. I'm here on behalf of the borough president, but I'm also here on behalf of the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation. Put your hand up if you know what that is. A handful. The Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation is an arm of our office. It's a 501c3 where the president and the board of directors are picked by the borough president, and its goal is to facilitate the growth of business and economic development in the county. And within the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, we have the BIC, which is the Business Initiative Corporation, and the Bronx Tourism Council. So through those arms, we do a number of things to promote the borough, promote economic development, job creation, and so from those different perspectives, I'm going to talk to you about the initiatives that are going on in the borough so that we can talk about the Tech Startup Initiative and how it works in the greater context of what's going on. Again, 1.5 million people. It's the highest Bronx population has been since 1970. All right, so there was massive depopulation over the 70s and 80s. The Bronx now, at 1.5 million people, is the highest it's ever been since 1970. So we've had tremendous growth in regaining the population. A third of that population is foreign-born. To put that in perspective, okay? There's a great deal of private sector investment flowing into the borough in a number of different ways. Prestige Properties, the owners of the mall at Bay Plaza, are spending $300 million of their own dollars to expand the mall at Bay Plaza to bring a new Macy's to the area. Why is that a big deal? Macy's across the country is closing stores left and right. Yet they've chosen the Bronx as one of 5 places where they're going to create a new store And $300 million of prestigious owned private dollars flowing into a part of the Bronx is a very big deal. That's one example, right? How many of you are familiar with the Kingsbridge Armory? Come on, you can see some hands, all right? Enormous facility, big enough so that if a cannon were shot on one side, the cannonball would go across to the other side and land and not touch anything, right? But that probably the largest armory in the world. You could be the debate was last night. Fact check, you got. So, Kingsbridge Armory, right? Long debate. If you've been following what's going on, us and the mayor's office have come together, and there are two proposals on the table. Regardless of whichever is picked, we're going to be happy because that's another round of millions of dollars that will take a long, dormant building, a building that's been dormant for decades, right? Drain on the city's revenues, and turn it into a vibrant new facility with, again, millions of private sector dollars going into it. And that announcement we're expecting around Thanksgiving before or after. From our own office, the borough president every year through the city charter gets an allocation of millions of taxpayer dollars for capital improvements. Right? Who knows what capital improvements are? I'm interactive, oh yeah. Capital improvements, those are money that go towards roads, schools, housing, infrastructure development. All right. Since borough president's been, since this administration started in 2009, we leveraged about $50 million of our own capital dollars into $600 million into new housing. $600 million of new housing since 2009. Leverage, right? We talk about economic development. We talk about public-private partnerships with P3. One of the things I do on behalf of the borough president is sit on the Regional Economic Development Council's initiative by Governor Cuomo to kind of bring a bottom-up approach to economic development modeled after the Clinton years, right? And so we talk about that again, leverage. How do we leverage what Fordham's doing so that more people can benefit? How can we leverage what's going on in terms of Sunshine Business Incubator and other things that are going on in the borough to accelerate a tech startup boom in this borough, because right now we are woefully behind the rest of the city. All right? Infrastructure, some more good news before I go into the rest. We're working actively with the MTA. Joe Loda, he may not be very popular right now because he's going to raise your Metro card. I'm not happy about that either. But he is a Bronx guy. He is a Bronx guy. We have two MTA board chairmen that are also Bronx guys, in Fernando Ferrer, Alan Pelly, and Charles Mulder. So they are very much on board with bringing the East Bronx Metro north. Think how transformative it will be to have 4 Metro North stations going into Midtown Manhattan at Hunts Point, Parkchester, Melrose, Co-op City. And the rail is already there. The rail already exists. The issue is East Side access. Right? Long Island Railroad needs to get out of Penn Station and into Grand Central so we can open up the rail capacity. Right? We're working adamantly with MTA, who's on board with this, because East Side access is a wonderful big did. If you're a Boston person, you know what the big did. Oh, we got some Boston people. Fantastic. I went to high school in Concord. We're working with the MTA so that, because since the rail is already there, for very minimal investment to convert those rails into new stations, we could have East Side access of the Metro North go live at the same time East Side access for Long Island Railroad comes into Grand Central. Imagine 2 brand new ways to get into the city going online at the same time. All right, so there's a lot of things that we need to work together on to make sure that happens. So those are the things that keep my office very busy, keep the ODC very busy, and so we're very excited. There's a great deal of potential and a great deal of positive movement going on in the Bronx. Is there a timer? I'm not going to go. Doing all right? Excellent. All right. So I appreciate you bringing up the Center for Urban Future report, because there's a lot of really good things in there. I'm going to flesh some of that out a little bit. But when we talk about what is needed to facilitate a tech startup environment, a lot of what we need is already in front of us. We're talking about quality universities, cheap commercial space, access to capital, access to other startups to collaborate and generate that creative synergies, right? Very cool word, synergy. Other startup companies. And secondly, obviously, business counseling and business plan guidance and how you get access to navigate all that. So first notion there, right? Quality universities. Well, we're in one of the best ones in the country. Fordham University, it's great to be here, big fan. Amazing university and beautiful campus, and we're doing phenomenal things. Just this past Monday, the Fordham Foundry was open. Wonderful facility that's going to take New York City business solutions and Workforce One into one of the most active commercial corridors in the city, if not in the region. If you look at the MTA, Metro North and subway numbers, this is one of the most traffic areas, the top 5 in the city, if not the region. In addition to that, there's also the Center for Digital Transformation, which is our host this morning. All right? But Fordham's not alone. This is the borough of universities. Lehman College last week on October 12th just opened a $70 million facility dedicated to sciences and math and STEM. All right? This is also the one borough of the 5 that has 2 community colleges. All right? There's a great deal of capacity to really get more out of the intellectual capital and student body to drive a tech startup industry. But you have to ignite that community. You have to build in that population, because without it by itself, we don't drive them to the resources available. We don't facilitate collaboration at the academic level. You're not going to get the collaboration that leads to the next great idea, the next Instagram or what have you, without these universities and these student populations talking to each other and collaborating with each other and giving them a curriculum that facilitates science, technology, engineering, and math. All right? Cheap space. All right? The Bronx, in terms of commercial space, is by far the best bang for your dollar. Who knows about the Hutchinson Metro Center? Thank you. Really? 2? That's it? Hutchinson Metro Center? It's nearby. It's an incredibly successful office facility that, since the developer acquired the first parcel back in 2001, is now doubled in size to 42 acres. There's going to be a new Marriott. Again, more private sector dollars flowing into the borough because the private sector is realizing this is a great frontier to grow their businesses, and that there's an incredibly underserved market here in the Bronx. All right, so the Lunch Metro Center, not too far from here, northern part of the borough, is doubled in size to 42 acres since it's gone. All right? Commercial space at the Hutchinson Metro Center, $40 a square foot less than for comparable space in Midtown Manhattan. All right? And there's more on the way. Triangle Equities is building a $35 million facility at the hub on 149th Street. Who knows what the hub on 149th Street is? Oh, a lot of eggs. Oh, goodness. All right? And obviously, so there's more commercial space, office space, again, that will be far more affordable to startups than there is in the rest of the city. All right? Dean spoke about the Sunshine Business Incubator, the Ventnor building, for $195 a month. Can you beat that? You can apply to get into the Sunshine Incubator, but that's a great facility that is taking off because it has exactly what you want in an incubator. You have collaborative environment, first-class facilities, first-class internet, which is a challenge for a lot of the industrial buildings in the city. I'm sure other people will talk about that. But here's the one issue I have here. Who knows about EDC? Economic Development Corporation of the City of New York. All right? This is Bloomberg. This is the mayor's arm to create economic development and broker deals and take underutilized properties and leverage them and make them active. All right? If you go to EDC's website, I count 16 business incubators and workspaces. How many of those 16 are in the Bronx? One. Come on, I'm going to start calling them. One of the 16. One of the 16. That's woefully inadequate. All right? We have too many universities. We have too many students. We have Montefiore Health Center, right? The the largest employer in the borough, right, at a time where health IT is an emerging growth source of jobs and industry and job creation, yet we have only one EDC business space integrator. So thank goodness that Fordham Foundry is now online as of Monday, right? But there is more on the way. I'm going to sing the praises of Majora Carter, fellow Wesley alum. Startup Box South Bronx is going to be opening its doors shortly in Hunts Point. All right, another attempt to kind of recreate what's going on in Sunshine, but another part of the borough. Because again, we need more spaces where people can come together and collaborate and be on an affordable way to do tech startups. Right, and that's in the works. The next notion I said in terms of the ingredients to facilitate a tech startup environment: access to capital. The BIC, which is a subsidiary of the BOEDC, which I spoke about earlier. And since 2009 alone, the BIC has done $15 million of its own lending, which is leveraged with another $21 million from banks for $46 million in projects to Bronx businesses since 2009. And that's just little us, the Borough President's Office, and the BOEDC. Right? That doesn't know about the rest of what BOEDC does, and all we've done to green roofs, sustainability, and whatnot. That's just the big portfolio, $46 million in projects to Bronx businesses since 2009. And as noted in the report, from the Bronx to Midtown and wonderful venture capital Manhattan, is a very short 25-minute train ride. And New York City, by far, is leading in the venture capital department in terms of the number of deals. Since 2007, 15 or more of the startups mentioned have raised more than $50 million in investments. Right? 27 have investments of at least $25 million, and 81 have raised at least $10 million. So the reason there's 400 plus startups in the center of Manhattan is because their capital is there. And there's no reason why the Bronx businesses can't plug into, Bronx startups can't plug into that capital. Access to other startups. This is where, again, we really need to play catch up. As the professor noted, there's 431 businesses located between 14th Street and 42nd Street in Manhattan. Brooklyn is a distant second with 25, 27. Queens is third, fifth. But there is some good news there. Let's differentiate that for a second. That list of firms are just the firms that have received venture capital since 2007. The universe of tech startups is tremendously larger. In fact, that report acknowledges there are a good 1,000 startups, web startups, that have yet to receive any capital at all throughout the city of New York, and that the media environment for these firms is growing exponentially. It's doubling from 2011 to 2012. All right. So that's kind of the working environment we're moving around in. In terms of challenges that I think Fordham and the universities here at the Bronx should really kind of have capacity with very little financial investment, have a large ROI, return on their investment, in the sense of how do we again generate the critical mass of people working in the borough, applying these technologies in innovative and creative ways. Part of the problem is that we're not doing a good enough job of growing the intellectual capital of young people in this borough. In 2011, only 330 Bronx students received an invitation to a specialized high school. Who knows what a specialized high school is? All right, a number of you, right? We're talking about Bronx Side, we're talking about Stuyvesant, right? These are the elite prep schools, public schools, public schools of New York City. Our office released a report in May. I'm going to plug it not because I'm the primary author, but because it's excellent research. And it talks about how if you take the numbers of enrollment at the specialized high schools and modify them, right? If you adjust for the actual share of the population, the Bronx is underrepresented in specialized high schools at a 3-to-1 clip. 3-to-1. Now, I refuse to believe that there aren't more kids in the Bronx that have the capacity to be successful at a Bronx Science. I refuse to believe that. But what's the issue? inadequate access to test prep. Right? There's an entire industry that services Queens, services in Manhattan, it's in the report, that does not exist in the Bronx. Right? We don't have enough Bronx kids. We're only gifted and talented programs. And this is a real challenge. So we wrote this report and released it in May. We had the deputy chancellor in our office not even a week later. You know what she said to us? She said, Ray, we have a program to help to get poor kids into test prep, but in the poorest parts of the city, District 7 and whatnot, we've identified kids, we've sent them the invitation, and we can't get kids to enroll. There's a real problem there. All right? There's a disconnect between getting kids in economically challenged areas to better utilize programs, academic programs. And without having more partners on the ground to make that connection, to solve that disconnect, we're never going to get the pipeline of kids coming out of Bronx Science, enrolling in Bronx colleges, participating in the Bronx startups that are going to drive and again, give us the critical mass needed for this tech startup community to thrive and grow. And really grow to scale. We've got a few seeds, but as any businessman will tell you, if you can't scale it, you're not going to get anywhere. So what kind of investments by Fordham and the rest of the academic community can scale the number of young people and students, graduate students, what have you, into participating in the environment that we're very much investing in creating, that the groundwork is there for and is growing. That's a very big problem. And again, the report's available off our website. I strongly recommend who's taking a look at it. Because again, access to the specialized high school admissions test, which is the exam that gets you into specialized high school, is a problem. So much so that the NAACP has filed a lawsuit on this issue in federal court, citing our report and attaching it to the complaint. It's a big educational reform. But then, so moving on from that, in terms of challenges, we're making all these seeds in terms of creating the environment to hopefully spark and scale up this tech startup industry. But I have yet to hear really a coordination and collaboration plan. Where is the plan for the Sunshine Incubator, the Lehman Science Center, and the Fordham Center for Digital Transportation to work together to leverage their resources in a dynamic way? Universities, tend to often compete, but realities are if this tech startup is going to work, they need to collaborate now more than ever. So where is that plan? And more importantly, how do you have that plan and not have the largest employers in the borough, i.e. the healthcare industry, driving that? Right? Montefiore, Einstein, all these institutions have a vested interest in investing in and providing seeds for the startup community to grow, because they're the ones that very much, with their changes in healthcare and whatnot, and the needs for healthcare, IT, information management growing astronomically, they very much have a need to bring this R&D, bring this startup technology into their R&D programs. And again, but there's that I haven't seen that connection made. 5 minutes. All right. Keep moving forward. I also like to cite another report that I think really kind of speaks to the skill set mismatch. Last night at debates, people talk about jobs to create jobs. Yada, yada. The Brookings Institute released a really good report in July. I suggest you, I highly recommend it, looking at the patterns and trends in M1B visa applications. Did you know that the New York City metro area leads the country in MB1 visa applications, right? But in a commanding way, right? Los Angeles is second, San Fran is third, San Jose is fourth, right? New York made more applications in 2011 in those three areas combined. But that's combined. Europe 1, 2, 3, and 4 combined, right? And those are not small metropolitan areas. Chicago was 6th on the list, for 14,000. New York, 52,000. And these visas are going for what? 64% of them went to science, technology, engineering, and math professionals. Right? And who are the firms that are doing these hirings? They're going to sound very familiar. Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan, two huge New York employers. In fact, J.P. Morgan is the largest financial service employer in the city. Right? E&Y, Ernst & Young, Deloitte Consulting, and Deloitte & Touche. Right? And then from the top 10 going up, I'm not David Letterman, IBM Corporation, Intel. IBM, Intel, Infosystems, IBM India, Cognitive Technology Solutions, Wipro Limited, and number one, Microsoft. Right? These are all technology companies driving this, many of which have huge, huge presences in New York and are big city employers. And they're telling us, by their behavior in 2011, that they have a massive need for hires, and they're not finding it here, so they got to go through the process of sponsoring individuals to fill these gaps. And it's very concerning. And one other note that was really alarming as I reread it last night and again this morning. There are federal funds in place so that in areas where you see this brand distortion, to invest in training and education for that local population. Do you think any of that money is going to the city of New York? Sadly, no. So we're leading the country in doing visas, yet we're not utilizing the federal funds that are there to create better technology and training for the local population. And before I step down, and thank you again, it's been a real pleasure to be here and talk and think through these issues with you. Indeed, the Bronx has a number of high concentrations of poverty. We're first in unemployment, first in poverty, but those numbers don't really tell the story. When you look at, again, a third of the population is foreign born. You see this inability to grow and maintain a middle class. Because, I know from my own experience, and you see actually in the census data, the Bronx leads the city and part of the area in migration to other parts of the country. So it's not that the Bronx is actually this great place for individuals to come, achieve upward mobility, but then they leave. And it doesn't really, and it's not fair when we talk about person poverty. We have high concentrations of poverty, and that should be a challenge before this body. How do we use technology and new media to test? Because again, these high concentrations of poverty are really only certain pockets of the borough. And it's not the whole story. And we together need to take ownership of that image and say there's a lot more going on here. The Tour de Bronx this past weekend. It ended here across the street, the Town Garden. And you saw the coverage. So many people said, oh my God, I'm so happy to be in the Bronx. I love living here. The garden is beautiful. We've got so many great institutions. The Bronx is moving in a phenomenally wonderful direction. But we've got to take ownership of that image, ownership of that story, and say, yes, we understand what these certain stats say, but they don't tell the whole story. So I hope that you all will join me in doing a better job of taking telling that story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray. That was both very informative and pleasant. So much appreciated, and it's always hard when you're early in the day to introduce these points. We really appreciate that. I'm sure that there will be more to come in terms of questions as well. I'm just going to try to pull up my presentation to the American Special Assistance system. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm going to cover some of the technology trends that we're seeing. This is going to be a shift, and I will partially apologize, partially not apologize for those of you that are not technologists. I mean, after all, this is the Center for Digital Transportation, so we need to cover that a little bit. But here's the point that I'd like you to think about as I'm going through some of the slides. This is not to allow you or to turn you off with a lot of technical jargon. The key message that I have, if you don't take away a lot in terms of the detailed technology, the key messages are, number one, there's a number of things that are happening in the technology space that actually are very well suited to the Bronx and to the mission that we've set out for ourselves today. because they really provide an advantage for smaller firms as well as new startups to do things that weren't possible in the past. Yes. So that's the first point, that we have a chance to really use the newer technologies in a much more cost-effective approach than would have been possible before. The second point that I want to leave you with, and this will be my last couple of slides, is the impact that this will have on the workforce. So very much as Ray was talking about the fact that all these companies that you mentioned are bringing in workers from the outside, those are for technical skills that exist today and can be found in other places. But there's a raft of new skills that don't exist anywhere. That these new technologies are demanding. So one of the opportunities for the Bronx, for the center, and for all of us is to understand what those newer skills are going to be. And that could be the type of skill, as you see as we go through this, that perhaps universities and some of the local institutions can really take advantage of. So what I'm going to share with you, and if anyone would like the details on this, I'm happy to get this to you electronically. You can just make the request to RP. But we do an annual survey and a study to take a look at technology vision. My company is a technology company, so there's two sayings that we go by, which is as a consultant with the slides, and as a technologist, we need to have a vision of the future. So that's what we have. This comes from research that we've done, but also very importantly, and to pick up on some of the things that we heard before, it comes from what we're seeing come out of commercial R&D labs and the flow of funds from venture capital firms. Where are the venture capital firms putting their money? And that's important as well. So even from the standpoint of incubation, you want to go where the money is. And so what we're going to try to share with you today is a little bit where some of the venture capital firms think are some of the most promising places to invest. This chart tries to encapsulate some of the context of what we're looking at. And across the top, you see a number of different characteristics of the current environment. Fragmented on the one hand in terms of all the different technologies out there, but people more and more interconnected. Certainly the rise of savvy people. For any of you that do work in corporate America, one of the things that you'll know is one of the hottest things going on is what's known as bring your own device to work. And what's happened is the end consumers, especially growing up on things like Apple and Amazon, have felt that their IT departments have left them behind, so what do? They bring their own technology and they just bypass it. Certainly mobile and on the go is more and more. And also when you combine all these things, a much more discerning marketplace for this technology. Now what are some of the potential responses? And that's really along the bottom of the chart. And again, these are things that I think we can help to address as we look at some of the different dimensions of the problem. One is this whole area of personalization. And I'll come back to this later because it's a great opportunity, especially to serve small enterprises. So much of what's gone in the last 20 or 30 years in technology has been for the big, global 2000 firms. But the technologies we're seeing out there today represent a new opportunity to get to smaller firms. In many cases, not just because they're tailored for that, but because the cost is a fraction of what it would have been historically. And I'll give you some examples of that. And just one other thing to point out here, so we don't miss all of this, is also just recognizing that the way that you need to bring these things together is not just in terms of disparate technology. If I could use a little bit of a metaphor, it's not just about having the electrician and the carpenter and the plumber come in and do their thing and think that those systems are all independent. They really need to work together. So I'm going to briefly touch upon 6 trends. We don't have time to go through them in detail, but hopefully it'll whet your appetite. And again, without draining what all of them are from a deep technology perspective, I'll try to bring out some of the elements that I think are important for the things that we're most interested in. And I would say that these are trends that are important, not just from a technology incubation perspective or from a business perspective, but I think that it's very important for academia and for government as well to understand some of the potential for these different technologies. So the 6 very quickly: context-based services, converging data architectures, industrialized data, social-driven IT, platform as a service, and finally, what we have, a little bit of a jargon, orchestrated analytical security, or to put it in layman's terms, what do you do when bad things happen? And they will in this more complicated world. So again, we're going to do a whistle-stop tour through these 6, and during the panel discussion, if you do have questions, we'll try to have it. Very simply, context-based services is the combination of where you are and what you're doing. It's more than just mobile computing. Very simple example that I can give you, but very powerful, is if you have a car and you have some of the modern services like OnStar from General Motors, or if you have some of the European car companies have this service as well. If you break down, they will be able to send you a tow truck. They'll know where you are. So it's the combination of an event has happened, and they know where you are. In a more commercial setting, many of you perhaps have a Starbucks card. That's a very passive thing. But in the future, what you'll be able to have is if you're walking by a Starbucks facility, you'll get an alert on your phone saying that perhaps your favorite drink is on sale. So this context-based service is very interesting because it's a chance for smaller enterprises to be able to develop very tailored services based upon where you are and what you're doing in a way that normally if they were doing mass mailings or something like that would be prohibited and they couldn't even get to. So perhaps a trivial example, but very powerful nonetheless, context-based services. Second example, convergent data architectures. Now, data itself is a topic that the center has looked at. Many of you have heard the term big data. Many of you are involved in analytical endeavors. It's a very exciting area and has huge promise. But like many other technologies, one of the things that often gets overlooked is the amount of legacy that's still out there. And so, I sometimes joke with some of my colleagues who are just starting out their careers. I've been in Extension for 32 years. And I talk about the programming languages I started with, back in 1980. And, the point that I'm trying to make to them is some of these technologies still exist. Today, if you want to find a COBOL program, you have to leave the United States and go to other places to find it. Here's the point here. These data architectures, which are deeply embedded in many companies and many products, are going to be with us for a very, very long time. So the point here is being able to build a bridge between these and being able to get the best of the newer technologies while dealing with the older data structures are very important. What's the implication for us this morning? I think this is going to be a discipline that will be very important from an employment standpoint. Someone that can live in both of those worlds and really understand how to connect the two. That's going to really release the benefit. A very trivial example, if someone were to show up at your house with some kind of new television, but no one was broadcasting that signal, you'd have a beautiful device and you can take advantage of it. The metaphor is the same. If you're going to go out as a company, small or large, and install all of these new great data technologies and you can't use it, that's the problem. I see that all the time in business. Companies buy this very elegant technology, and then it's dwarfed in cost by being able to connect and harvest all the data that they have. So that's a dimension first. Third, industrialized data services. Here what we're talking about is really the change in the way that data is governed and owned in an organization. A little bit esoteric, the topic of governance. But here what we mean is historically, and certainly over the last 20 or 30 years, data has been the pride and responsibility of the IT organization. That is quickly falling away. It's been owned by the IT organization because there's been nowhere else for it to live. And today what we're seeing in many large companies is the rise of data of an individual discipline. In fact, many of the firms that I work with have now chief data officers that are at the same level as a CIO and a head of operations. So certainly there from a career perspective, there's a new opportunity. But just as importantly, where data used to be the purview of people that knew things like data structure sets or relational technology or those advanced the concepts were, now we're seeing what's more important is people that understand data from a business perspective. And no one will be able to own or contain the data. It's going to require more of a network effect. So this is going to be, again, a whole new series of opportunities and demands with regard to careers and understanding, and also to unlock the value that a lot of this newer data technology can provide. Our fourth trend is social-driven IT. Certainly in the few moments we have, I won't be able to do this whole benefit, and certainly